Okay, Unit 8, Lecture 2B. I'm going to continue where we just left off. I threw up a little graphic organizer where you want to write that down, get some of the important stuff on there, the causes, the impact, and the New Deal, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So 1929, the stock market crash I was talking about. It's Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929. Several causes. Over-speculation fueled by excessive overexpansion of credit was one cause. Second, business failures leading to bankruptcies. And third, the banks had deposited or invested people's deposits in the stock market. So when the stock market bottomed out, the banks lost everybody's deposit money. They lost their investments also. So when businesses failed, I'm going to go into the first one now, the stocks lost their value. Prices fell. Production slowed. Banks collapsed. And unemployment became widespread at its worst. And this is a number I want you to remember. Unemployment reaches 25%. Okay, as a consequence of the stock market crash, clients panicked, attempted to withdraw their money from the banks. Okay, but there's nothing to give them. So now nobody has any money, no new investments are going to occur. All right, and business is going to plummet. Lots of a rapid decrease in business activity and creation. Okay, this business downward spiral cycle occurs despite the preventive action taken by the Federal Reserve System. The Federal Reserve System functions as the central bank of the United States. The Federal Reserve Act creates the Federal Reserve Banking System. It's one of Wilson's progressive reforms, remember, all right? And this law divides the United States into 12 Federal Reserve districts, each of which possesses a Federal Reserve Bank. A Federal Reserve Bank is a banker's bank. Only banks can have accounts in the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, if a bank needs to borrow money, it can. It may do so from the Federal Reserve Bank. However, a bank must pay interest on its loans from the Federal Reserve. So one of the things the Federal Reserve does is establish interest rates nationwide. Okay, so the Federal Reserve Board is appointed by the President of the United States, and this oversees the actions of the Federal Reserve Banks and sets the interest rate which banks must pay to borrow money from the Fed. The Federal Reserve's power to set interest rates enables it to control the nation's money supply. All right, so they allow then, or it allows them to influence inflation. Okay, how much money we have out in circulation. All right, and it can affect the economy greatly. If it feels the economy is slowing down, not enough job creation, not enough business, it can lower interest rates, which will then increase borrowing and investing. Okay. So when the stock market crashes in 1929, the Federal Reserve Board was unable to prevent it from triggering the Great Depression. All right, during the 20s, many banks had invested their savings deposits in the stock market. All right, when they had also loaned money to speculators who were buying stock on credit. When the market crashed, these individuals lost their investment, okay, and could not cover their loans. As a result, the banks lost money, all right, which they had loaned for stock speculation. All right, so although the Federal Reserve Board had recognized and realized in the late 20s that speculation was out of control and had tried to adjust interest rates accordingly, it could not protect individual banks from unsound loan policies. All right, once banks began to fail, Americans began to lose confidence in the banking system. Remember to ask me in class why it's so important that our local banks function well, function properly, why we need a banking system, okay? Remember to ask me that. Okay, so as we lose confidence in the banking system, thousands of Americans rush to withdraw their savings from the banks. As a result, during the first 3 years of the Great Depression, 5,000 banks failed and 9 million Americans lost their savings account. The Federal Reserve's failure to prevent widespread collapse in the nation's banking systems in the late 1920s and early 30s led to a severe contraction or reduction in the nation's money supply and circulation. So the stock market crash and the failure of the Fed are two causes of the Great Depression. Another cause, which we're going to get into in the next video, is the high protective tariffs. That's the end of 2B.